Hello and welcome to 18 WJTS Inform. I'm your host, Bill Potter. Joining me in the studio as we are honored every Friday during legislation, that is State Senator Mark Messmer representing District 48. Senator, welcome to the show.
Great to be here as always.
Well, we are glad that you keep coming back. Thank you very much.
Well, my pleasure. We're well into the second half of things. Monday we'll finish up amending bills, House bills. Tuesday will be our final votes on House bills, and then we'll enter a week of conference committee time and wrap up on the 14th. So it's getting down to the wire.
So you really will be done the 14th,
yes.
Ideally. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Recently, obviously, there's been a lot of news about gun violence and what legislation can be done. What's happening in the House? Okay.
Well, we did have a resolution we passed this week that'll set up a summer study committee on what additional steps should we take, or on hardening schools, on what can we do to help make them as safe as possible. So that was an issue led by Senator Toms this week, because we do a specific bill, a new law? No, but we've done a lot in the last over the last 10 years. We've done a lot to set up laws, and actually starting back in 2005, we set up what was called a red flag law. And what that does is allows people who are suspected, if somebody, a family member, a friend says, hey, I think Bill's going to do something, crazy, and he's threatened to kill somebody, we have the ability to have law enforcement, seize their guns. Only 5 states have what they call a red flag law. Okay. For mental illness, or emotional issues, or people that are, perceived as a threat to themselves or other people. And now, there's due process, and if they take them, there's a process is in place for an appeal in case it's a false charge. Sure. And those can be, if you think somebody's suicidal, or if you think they're a threat, and if they have a license, that process triggers in, to repeal their license if they are indeed found through the court proceedings that follow, a threat to themselves or other people. Their guns can be kept forever, potentially. Every 6 months they have the opportunity to go back for a review and see if they can get their firearms back or not. But that's a step that most other states don't have. We've also, starting when I was in the House, I'm going to say probably in 2012, 2013 range, we started the process of additional grant funding to schools for security measures, and I think every year schools are available to apply for grants for security systems, for camera systems, for door locking systems. We fund the school resource officers for every school. So we've done a lot of things just over the last 5 to 10 years when there's been other issues pop up with lapses in security of in other schools across the country. We've been proactive on that, and at this point then we're going to study a little deeper to see what else should we or could we do. There was a school in Senator Leising's district. I'll have to look the school number up, but they got some state and federal grants, and I think it cost them about $500,000 to harden their school with cameras that are piped directly to the sheriff's office, with smoke systems, with camera systems, lock systems, security that there was an analysis ran, and they were tagged as the most secure school in the country. Just in the past week or two, that report came out. Okay. So we're trying to do everything we can. Obviously, there's limits to, you can't prevent every opportunity for somebody that wants to be destructive, but we need to do everything that's sensible and reasonable. And another bill we passed, I think in 2013, we do allow school boards, to permit, teachers to carry in schools. Okay. I don't know if any of them have followed through with it. It's not something that would be disclosed to the public typically, but if somebody has a license and they're trained, and a school board wants to, they can adopt the policies for the training, for the scenarios where but we do allow that as well. So don't know if any of them have ever applied for it, if any of them have ever approved it. But we do allow it to go to that extent if a school felt it was the right thing to do.
So Indiana has already taken steps.
As proactive
other
as-
states are now looking at
Yes,
it. But
yes.
the federal government
And,
is also looking
yeah,
at it.
yeah, they are, and our red flag law, I mean, that's looked at as, that's becoming a model for, for other people to copy. The school safety specialist is mandated for all schools. I mean, we're doing things to try to have people look at what you're doing, look at your security systems, look at your procedures. We have training through our state police free to any school across the state that wants it for active shooter drills, active shooter training. So we're trying to be proactive, and but we'll dig into the issue a little bit deeper this summer and see what other measures we need to do.
So if folks have thoughts, they can give you
Yep.
their
Send me an email.
ideas for
Yep.
okay.
Absolutely.
Now you had 3 bills that passed this week.
3 bills that I was sponsoring in the Senate that came from the House, and a couple of them that took a lot of work. One was the update to the chiropractic code. Hadn't been updated in 30 years, and really, the educational requirements were toughened. What they're trained on now versus 30 plus years ago, has changed quite a bit. So it was really an update to get them, up to current standards. And that was House Bill 1384, passed out of the Senate this week unanimously, 48-0. So I was pretty happy with that.
Doesn't happen very often.
But bringing the doctors, the MDs and the osteopaths and the physical therapists and the occupational therapists, and because there's so many times there's overlapping terminology from one trade to the other, and really trying to make sure that you don't create an avenue into one of their specialty areas that was unintended. And spent a lot of time and work, with all of those groups, and got the bill into a point where nobody was opposed. Now, I mean, whether they say yes, we are, cheering that thing, with, raucous approval, no, but just getting them neutral is a big deal. So that was neat to see that one pass. The small cells bill, we passed a bill last year that set up regulations and permit processes for phone technology companies that want to get the 5G small cell systems in place, and how they permit them through the cities, and the application processes and fee processes. But we had a little goof up that left a 1-week window that allowed cities, or in some places 8 entire counties, declared themselves, only utilities can only be put underground. Well, that's incredibly expensive to run utilities underground versus overhead on a pole. And we worked with the associations of cities and towns representatives, worked with the cell companies, the power companies, and got that into a spot by the time we got it to the Senate that it was supported by everybody. That bill passed out. I don't remember if it was unanimous. I think it was, because there was no opposition to the bill. And short-term rentals, the Airbnb issue popped up a year and a half ago when Carmel tried to ban them. So some Carmel Airbnb hosts came to the State House and said, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense. There's 4,000 Airbnb hosts in Indiana already. 178,000 people stayed at Airbnb locations in Indiana last year, millions of dollars of economic benefit. And that bill sets up, the basic standard was, if it's your home, your primary residence, where you have a homestead credit, that'll be the litmus test on how you verify it's my primary homestead. And you want to rent it, government can't tell you no. I mean, it's if your property, your castle,
do what you want.
Okay. If it's not your primary home, if it's an investment property, then we set up some parameters on how things they can zone, things they can do, permit fee maximums they can charge, to allow a board of zoning appeals, if you have neighbors, to say, hey, we really don't want that here, to set up a process for there to be public input and appeal processes and all that, for folks who have investment, properties. Really, I think there's just a handful of states that have ordinances at all dealing with short-term rentals. And we really copied the model that Lafayette had passed the summer of 2017, after about a year and a half of thrashing through that issue to kind of get down to where we were on this. That was more or less our model that we adopted for statewide use, and no objection to that. The realtors liked it, the associations of cities and towns. When I boiled that down in study committee last year, they got to a point where they were satisfied with it. Had nobody speak in opposition to the bill in the House or the Senate, and that one, I think there might have been 1 or 2 no votes on that one, but we're getting those things through the General Assembly now and checking those off the list. Those were all issues that I had been involved with, with Senate bills, and then ended up being the Senate sponsor of a House bill, just because committees get 15 or 20 bills. They might only be able to can't get them all ran through that get filed. And when I saw those moving in the House, I thought I'd wait and take them in the Senate, and carried them through smoothly. So glad to see those done.
Now, there was a bill that went into your committee this week that you effectively killed.
I killed it. Yes,
Yeah.
It's a product called small loans. It's different from the consumer finance products that are out there, like personal finance here in town. One Main is a large company, and they're basically consumer installment loans, 12-month, 24-month loans. I think the maximum interest on those is 36%. But people who have bad credit or no credit or poor credit can't qualify to get those. So the only product they really have available to them for short-term money needs is what they call a payday loan, and that's a 2-week loan. There's a filing origination fee with that. You pay the origination fee plus of $25 or whatever it is, plus you pay the money back in 2 weeks, and you can renew those up to maybe, I think, 10 or 12 times in a year's time. But you just keep repaying that origination fee portion of it. Eventually you pay back what you borrowed at the next payday, is where the term payday loan came from. Well, those folks, and really about 6 months ago, it looked like the federal government was going to outlaw that product. So the folks in that industry came. They talked to me over the summer. I said, well, I wasn't really interested in carrying that bill, but they explained to me what they were doing, because it looked apparent that it was going to be July 1 of next year they were going to be gone. So they developed a product that is an installment loan in place of the payday loans, but the interest rates, the origination fee plus the monthly interest, the rates were on a 3-month loan at $605, where our payday loan, product stops now, would have been a net APR of about 220%, which is pretty high.
You're not really going to get out of your problem.
No, you're just going to be caught in a debt cycle. Yeah. And it had parameters that were set up to really, I thought, allow you to borrow too much. You could borrow up to 20% of your income. Well, you're really going to get stuck in a debt cycle that you can't get out of. And I looked at how, I worked with the Department for Financial Institutions there at the State House about, reducing the origination fee, reducing, the monthly rates, looking at letting them borrow maybe only 5 or 10% versus 20%, and tried to come up, they'd run a spreadsheet on it, and tried to come up with some alternatives that were, stomachable. But you couldn't really, no matter what you did, you were still in the 150 to 180%, APR, which is, it was hard to come up with anything that I thought was palatable. And I had to schedule that bill for a hearing, by Monday for Thursday's committee hearing. And Monday I did, just made the announcement that, and there was a lot of Catholic charities that, the TRICAP, people that serve low-income folks across the state. They were pushing pretty hard, for me not to hear it. And I told them all along, if I hear it, it's not going to be till March 1st. I want time to try to digest through it and see if it can be, put in a decent shape. And I just came to the conclusion that nothing could be done to really make it a palatable issue.
Well, thank you very much for coming in once again.
My
We
pleasure.
do want to point out that tomorrow, the Chamber of Commerce, and it's hosted at the Vincennes University Jasper Center for Technology, Innovation, and Manufacturing,
Yes.
I think, the CTIM building, in the auditorium there, the amphitheater that you and I think maybe...
As far as I know, Senator Houchin's going to be there, and then
Bartels
Bartels and Shane
Lindauer.
Lindauer.
Yeah,
Should
we'll
all,
be
we
there.
all should be
Okay.
there.
So it's state reps and the state senators for our area will be there to tell you things they're doing and an opportunity for you to ask questions if you'd like to.
Great. Yep.
Senator, thank you very much for being
My
here.
pleasure.
It's
As
always
always.
a pleasure.
Thank you.
All right, we'll see you tomorrow morning. Thank you for watching WJTS Inform. We are local people watching local people.